Hello comrades and welcome to Steve on Steve Plays China Mao's Legacy, the new game from KremlinGames, the guys behind two masterpieces known as Crisis in the Kremlin and Ostalgie the Berlin Wall, two excellent games from an excellent studio, and this is their upcoming game, China Mao's Legacy. And this game is not out yet, it's still in early development, and I'd like to say a very big thank you to KremlinGames for giving me an early access key, allowing me to, play the game and review it and show it to you guys, which I think is wonderful because the game is great so far. It's not finished, there are a lot of things to work on and polish, but it's already got a lot of content in it and it's already very interesting to play, and it's already got that the very familiar air of a KremlinGames game that I've grown to love, and I'm sure many others have as well. Now I'd like to say that I'm only allowed to preview the first year of the game's timeline, which is fine, and yeah, because it's still under a lot of work. But yes, let's get right into it. New game. So yes, if you've played Ostalgie, you'll be very familiar with this map. This is the map of basically the Eastern Hemisphere. Well, is it? Sort of, yeah. In Ostalgie you play as one of the Eastern Bloc countries, right? And you get to interact with the world. Well, here you play as China and you get to do things as well. Now, there are a few map modes, which is very typical. There's the government map mode, we're all socialist. Here there's influence, who we as China have influence on only in Albania and Cambodia so far. Military, if we're in a military alliance, and economy, who we're trading with. Very similar to Ostalgie, which is fine. To the right here we have a few countries we can also interact with, but they're off map, like the United States of America. Now at the moment I feel like a lot of the interactions aren't really worked out very well, or there's just not a lot of them that are very functional, which is fine. But yes, let's get right into the other things. If you've played Ostalgie, you'll be very familiar with a lot of the UI elements. It's very familiar, very easy to use. There's the support of the party, there's support of the people, liberalization, standard of living, international reputation, agent networks, global influence. I'm not entirely sure what that does yet so far. Relations with the Soviet Union and relations with America, and of course money. It's very similar to the Ostalgie UI. It's very accessible. It gives you a lot of information and lets you know very well where you're going wrong if you're going wrong. So let's dive into one of these tabs, Doctrines. Now this is a very interesting tab because this shows you essentially how your party works and your party line and your party direction where it's going. This little wonderful pie chart shows us the dominant parties. So far the Conservatives are the dominant party. For the purposes of what I want to do, it will try to make the left radicals in power. The left radicals are essentially the supporters of Mao and hardcore Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. The Conservatives are more like, trying to just maintain stability and balance after the great leap forwards in the Cultural Revolution, although the Cultural Revolution is still going on right now in the timeline of this game. Obviously then there's the moderates, who are just useless, and then there's the reformers, who want to go full Deng Xiaoping mode and, bring in the market economy, try to reform the stagnating economy, essentially. And then there's the liberals, who just want to go capitalist, obviously. They're banned, obviously. So we will click on left radicals to support them, which will gradually increase their power in the government, and in the party rather, because these are all factions within the Communist Party, because it's a one-party state. Then we're going to want to ban a few of these eventually, preferably starting with the reformers. But yes, here we can see that this is our state systems, socialism with national specific, that's basically socialism with Chinese characteristics. Then there's socialist authoritarian, that's our party line. Over the left here, if you've played Crisis in the Kremlin, you'll be very familiar with this kind of tab. You click on it and you can change the type of government, or certain facets of the government. For example, right now our type of economy is state monopoly capitalism. We're going to want to head over more left radical and go to Soviet-type planned economy. And as you can see in the bottom right, much like in Paradox games, there's a few criteria you have to fulfill in order to, click on this button. And one of them is Mao is dead, raise anchor, which basically means a lot of the decisions in the game are locked off until Mao dies. Because of course Mao is the great helmsman of the party, he's the ideological leader, and everybody looks up to him and nobody dares oppose him. So until he dies, we can't really change anything. Then let's go to parties. Again, just like in Crisis the Kremlin, you can change a lot of things about your government. You have one-party democracy, multi-party democracy, civil rights, territorial system, traditions and religions, and military power. Eventually we're going to want to go to full militarization, but that's, again, as you can see, we need the radical left to lead for that to happen. Let's go to the economy tab, and this tab is a bit jarring, it's a bit difficult to take in at first, but it's actually not that complicated once you actually look into it. It's just a bunch of tabs that show. It's like Crisis in the Kremlin, where you put funding into various things, except here it's essentially it's simplified here. It's a lot more easier to use. So let's look here. We have industry. This is the power of our industry. It's obviously very underdeveloped. Agriculture is also very weak. Services are weak. Corruption is very high. Now, in order to fix that, we need to cut envelopes for party members, just like in Crisis in the Kremlin. This is basically bribes. It's corruption. So we cut that down to 0. We got a lot of money to play around with. We're going to invest that a lot of it into MSS, the Ministry for State Security. This will allow, this is basically your KGB, you know, right? Like your agents. And this is very useful for maintaining discipline and shutting down dissent. We'll improve the state mechanism, we'll improve welfare, industry, services, propaganda, science, and yes, we'll hang on to 2 monies for now because the first few events might tank a bit of money. Yes, let's go into science. Science is a bit unintuitive, unfortunately, but I can explain it. I think there's 3 main kind of directions you can go in with science. There's agriculture and biology, which is the first one. Then there's industry and technology. And then there's armed forces and espionage and intelligence. So that's really cool how that's all split up into different facets. I think that's very interesting. It's a very interesting approach. I just feel like the UI is a bit difficult to work with. Maybe they should scale it down a bit. I don't know. I'm not a game designer. So obviously, the final recovery from the Great Leap. We have almost dealt with the destructive consequences of the Great Leap Forward, only last procedures left to be held, so let's do that. We will invest in recovering from the Great Leap Forwards, which was, of course, unfortunately, a major disaster. Then, much like in Nostalgie, there's a view panel, which lets you just look at how your country is doing. And much like in Crisis in the Kremlin, actually, there's a lot of different kind of active effects that could be going on, and they're all displayed here. For example, right now we have inefficient industry, inefficient construction, bastion of Maoism, Enlai's legacy, which is the legacy of Zhu Enlai, who promoted reformism, and then there's aftermath of the Great Leap Forward, which prevents agriculture from rising above 70. So hopefully that recovery from the Great Leap will be helpful. A lot of these are very cool. I don't know how to achieve them. Like, for example, oligarchy in power, deal with the triads, economic alliance, loss of Xinjiang, loss of Tibet, small business, American embargo, Soviet embargo. It's really cool. We can look at our balance of trade and our influence, territories, all of that. Basic stuff. Very useful. Very, very useful to once in a while just be able to glance at the numbers and see what's happening. It's very cool. Also, this is a Russian word here. It says special influence and it says отсутствует, which means is not present. Okay, cool. Let's go to politics. Now, this is the biggest change from the previous games, and I feel like it's a wonderful change. It's very interesting, and it's your government, right? The hierarchy of your government. We play as this guy. I have to apologize. I don't speak Mandarin, and I don't know anything about speaking Mandarin, and I'm gonna butcher all of the names, and I feel really sorry for that. We're Hua Guofeng, the leader of China. We're the premier. And these are all the other people in government. Of course, here we have the great Helmsman Mao Zedong himself. Oh, I'm sorry for that. Here we can see his age. He's 83 years old. He's a left radical, which is great, but he's a hard man, but he's sick, and he's about to die very soon. And we, of course, can't do anything. All hail the Helmsman. If you click on other ones, try to kill, it takes 2 money and 6 agents. But if you try to kill Mao Zedong, it says, all hail the Helmsman. Because, of course, there's the cult of Mao. You can't do anything to harm Mao until he dies, which is why no meaningful change can be made, which is the premise of this entire game. And it's very interesting. So, there are 8 major positions in the government. There is the premier, which is you. There's the chairman, which is Comrade Mao Zedong at the moment. And then there's the Minister of Finance, which is some other cunt. I think it's the Minister of Finance, if I'm not mistaken. I may be mistaken. But anyway, then we have the 5 regions. There's the capital, the north, the west, the south, and the east, which are of course the regions of China, because China is huge. And we want to give these positions to people who are favorable to our political views, because that's just what politics is, right? And straight away we have a few people, and this green bar is your relations. So you can hover over someone and you see their relations to everybody else. It's actually very well done. It's really cool. And obviously we look at us, and we see there's a lot of people who already don't like us, the moderates and the reformists, and they will have to go, because we will obviously be going left radical. And there's a lot of things you can do to these people. For example, Chen Zhilian. You can try to kill him, you can assign him different important positions, you can support him, which supports his ideology. You can hound him, which tries to push his ideology down and makes him less famous, less influential. You can open an investigation, which so far, I'm pretty certain this just means it's easier to kill him eventually, or I'm not sure, but it's a thing you can do. Right, so that's the government, and then obviously wars, which is nothing. Nothing yet. But yes, this is it. This is the beginning of the game. This is how it starts. This is the UI, and I think it's wonderful. It's really cool, and this will be it for this video, and in the next video we'll be getting into actually playing the game, the first year of the game, and seeing how the game works and how it all interacts, and it's all very interesting, and I'd love you guys to stick around. So if you want to see more of this, and more of this channel, more of my beautiful, soothing voice, then subscribe to the channel, comment in the comments below, and join our Discord where we can have loads of fun and share some memes. So yes, I'll see you in the next video, bye bye.